All right, so I used to get a lot of people, have you ever heard anybody talk about when taking a vehicle in and they say, well, hook it up to the machine and let them tell them what's wrong with it? You ever heard them say that word?
Yep.
And all that. Now, you guys have worked with machines already out here. You've worked with a machine, you work with a machine. Have you ever seen any machine that we can hook up to something and tell us what's wrong with it?
So what?
Have you seen a machine we can hook up to something that'll tell us what's wrong with the car?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so,
Yeah. Does it tell you what's wrong?
No.
Here's an example. Emmanuel just hooked up a scan tool to the Crown Victoria out there, and the fuel trims are running like 13 and 16. What's wrong? What part do you need to replace to fix that?
Yeah.
It hasn't told you what's wrong with the car.
It just-
All it's doing is telling you the direction you need to
yeah,
look.
yeah.
Tells you which way to look. It doesn't tell you, go to this particular place and tighten this particular screw and all that, you know. But anyway, we used to, this Stratus here was one that we worked on here a few years ago. Okay, one of the pictures I'm gonna show you, you've seen before, this was the actual car the picture was taken on. But what happened was this guy he worked here, he's one of my colleagues, he worked here at the college, and he said that his daughter had taken her car to a shop in some big town where she lived, and they said that it was running really bad and it was leaking oil pretty bad, and they said that it whacked out their machine and they didn't know what was wrong with it, and I mean that was their actual words, it whacked out their machine. I don't know what that meant, but one way or another, they told him, we gotta have to pull the transmission out and put a rear main seal in it, because it's got a really bad oil leak back there, and it's gonna be $1,000, and blah, 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 and all that kind of stuff. So he said, well, let me just take it up there and let them look at it. And so, knowing the numbers, and this is sort of along the line of what I'm talking about, knowing the numbers of what a sensor or an input is supposed to be is really important. Back when I first started working on the EC3 system on the Fords, what I wound up doing was I would measure voltages at all the sensors on good cars, and I would know what they were because I would measured so many good cars. And so, I would, there was a lot of things I was familiar with. If we're familiar with a particular make, you're more likely to be able to find a problem quicker. And so, like these DPFE sensors, see that one right there, we're reading 7/10 of a volt. Now the metal ones, like you see on this thing right here, supposed to read 6/10 of a volt whenever you switch on the key, 5 volts going out, read 6/10 of a volt. If I got a P0401 code and I turned it on, I saw 7/10 of a volt right there, I would know immediately I needed to put one of these on there. The check engine light problem, right? Now they've been putting those sensors on Ford cars since about 1991. I think the Lincoln may have been the first one that had, I may be wrong. Anyway, that was the 4.6. So, offset voltage is 0.6. If it's a plastic sensor, the offset voltage is 1 volt. TP sensor is supposed to read, usually on a GM car, about 0.5 volt to 1 volt. On a Ford, it's usually close to 1 volt. You know, and that's just sitting there. But you go up through you run it up through its, you're measuring a voltage while you're going up either with a scope or a meter. It don't have to drop out when it's going up. Scope, that's when you check that. All right, we found this leak here. Our repair shop claimed this oil leak was coming from the rear main engine oil seal, and we actually found it coming from under the head gasket. Remember what I told you in engine repair, if you've got overhead cam, you're going to have pressurized oil going up there to all those camshaft bearings. So that means that there's going to be a pressurized oil seal in some part of that head gasket that's going to have to help keep that oil in while it's headed up from the oil gallery through the head. The oil gallery actually goes part of that. Now on your engines like Nix, you don't have oil gallery going into the head. Got no reason for it. Got coolant going through the head, but no oil gallery. The only place you see oil in the head is it comes up through the push rods. The ones that got hollow push rods, right? So it comes up through the push rods and it's got to drain back down in there. But on these overhead cam engines, you're always going to have pressure. So that's a potential oil leak through the head. Right? It's got overhead cam underneath the head. That's where that one was. And we put dye in there, shined our black light on it, and I took that picture right there. And so this seal right here is the one that was leaking on that. The oil passage feeds the valve train. The leak was generated by this failed O-ring right here, the part of that. The first ones I worked on, the Volkswagen diesels, and also the gas burners. You know, that slant 4 that's on those. It had a seal like that. They weren't too bad to leak though. Anyway, so The timing marks were lined up, and the belt was nice. So this guy, what he did was, after we got it, we had to pull the head off and do all this, put it all back together, put the timing belt back on. This is important now, pay attention. The thing's running great. So he leaves on it, he's tickled pink. And then he calls me the next day and he says, I got back to Enterprise and the car started running bad, and I started seeing black smoke and all this. Now remember, the Chryslers don't use mass airflow typically. They use MAP, manifold absolute pressure, speed density system. So it's basically measuring the pressure in the manifold, and it's using that to determine what the engine load is. Mass airflow measures how much air is coming in. A lot of them have got a MAP sensor and a mass airflow, so they can, use the MAP sensor to see if EGR is flowing, or if they can use that to back up the mass airflow sensor if it goes south. But the point is, this one here came back and it was reading horrible fuel trims, low engine vacuum. Now remember, don't you remember this? Low engine vacuum is typically going to be caused by what? Out of time, late valve timing, late ignition timing if it has a distributor that will set that, or EGR flow. You got it? Typically one of those three things. Now it can be low because of a big massive vacuum leak, but most of the time you're going to hear that. So anyway, the long and the short of it is. So belt came back 60 miles later. It was still just as tight, but the timing marks were way out. See where the timing marks are? There's the timing mark, there's the timing mark. This is the dual overhead cam engine. And I'm thinking, how the hell did this happen? This belt wasn't loose. And it left, it was in time, it was running great. He was happy with it. It wasn't blowing the black smoke. But we had a low vacuum. We got low vacuum. The MAP sensor thinks it's got a heavier load. They'll put more fuel in there, it's gonna puff out the smoke out, the soot out the back. Okay, so remember this, black smoke is too much fuel, it's too many hydrocarbons. White smoke is coolant. And blue smoke is oil. You got it? Blue smoke's oil, white smoke's coolant, black smoke. And if you got gasoline mist, that's obviously bad hydrocarbon problems, right? We put a Toyota Camry back together out here one time, a little Toyota Camry, just like that engine you're putting the timing belt back on. We had to put the head back on it. And that's what put, hey, Jonathan, what's up with your
I
bad
got you the
something?
credit ticket on where we swapped out the wrong pads.
Brake pad, did you see the ones laying out there?
I did. I'll grab them.
Okay. There's
And I
those.
put your copies on your desk.
Okay, and then we got the right pads this time, hopefully. There's that one, and
I
that,
reckon he just looked at the
what is
wrong
that
one.
right there for?
Oil change on something, I don't know.
That's strange. I thought I already had a ticket on that.
I mean, I just brought you some oil just now.
Okay.
I don't know.
Well, there was a ticket in there that, okay, whatever, we'll figure it out. I mean, I don't know what this fits.
I think I brought maybe some oil earlier too, possibly, was a thing, but, I don't know, I was on the delivery whenever whoever called.
Okay,
I don't know
well,
if it was Adam or what
yeah,
have you.
yeah, Adam may have.
But I put yours on.
I'll
your
find
copies
out,
on the
I'll find
desk.
out from him what it is, okay, no problem.
Thank you, sir.
Anyway, so let me ask you this. Give me oh, I started to say this Toyota Camry, when we put the head back on it, we cranked it up and there was water coming out the exhaust. And I was thinking, oh no, this is bad news. But then I got noticing that the water coming out of the exhaust smelled really good. It smelled like windshield washer fluid. And what somebody had done was they had took the windshield washer line, instead of plugging it into the windshield washers, they plugged it into the intake manifold. So it was pulling windshield washer fluid out of the room, and it was going right on through the engine and out the back. I mean, it's a sort of a bluish color and it smells good. That's peculiar, you know. I mean, it was spooky to start with because we just put the head back on that thing. Where's all this water coming from? But it wasn't that. But anyway, what happens is, and this is really important, I gotta tell you this because you may get in trouble if you don't. You know how sometimes when you put some water pumps and there's gaskets in there you gotta scrape and all this, and then you go ahead and put your timing belt on? Well, this one here, and I'm just pretty much convinced this is what happened here, and the only thing that could have happened because it never gave us trouble again. Some pieces of trash got dislodged while he was driving, and it rode the timing belt down and went between the timing belt and the gear. See what I mean? And it went tit, and it jumped a few teeth. Now this 2.4 wasn't gonna bend valves, but if it's a Mitsubishi or one of those Kias that's got those valve benders, You know, that's a record-breaking comeback right there. But this particular one, we basically just had to put it back in time. You pick your air and blow all of that garbage out of there, make sure it's clean, you know what I mean? Just like before you pull a spark plugs out of a Crown Victoria or one of these, any of them that's got the wells where the spark plugs are in, you know, like the Crown Vicky that you just got through working on. Blow all that crap off the top of the motor before you ever even pull them things out of there. And I tell you something, I don't want it, if something falls out of there next to the spark plug so you can't get the dadgum socket on it, that's a drag, isn't it? You ever had that? Well, this is the president of the college, let me see what he wants. Sorry about that, y'all. Hey, Dr. Rydell, what's up? Oh, just fine? Yes, sir? Yes, sir? Oh, yeah, we'll put you some wipers and blades on there. Yeah. All right. All right. Yes, sir. You too. He's coming after lunch to get his vehicle inspection. Now he wants some wiper blades. Don't let me forget that. Okay, now, the map barrow sensor on these Chryslers, most of them, they supply the barometric pressure info to the PCM. All right, you're checking a late 80s high mileage Honda Accord for a blue smoke and idle problem.
There's no, pin is not working.
Oh, that was a pin that doesn't work, huh? Outstanding performance. Oh, what happened here?
They have to put it all straight. No, the whole thing you have to put it straight.
All right, swap out a pin with him, or somebody loan him a pin. All right, car runs fine otherwise. Compression test reveals compression is higher than normal. As you consider the evidence, which choice below would make sense? Advanced ignition timing, worn piston rings, advanced valve timing, or none of the above? Higher than normal compression. Blue smoke. Think about that. Is the blue smoke, is it possible for the blue smoke to have anything to do with the ignition timing? Not really. So you can eliminate that, right? Now, worn piston rings. Would worn piston rings cause you to have high compression? All right, I eliminated two of the answers for you. I'll let you guys choose the other, this will be fair. Honda came driving in hot, and your technician checked the compression immediately. He comes to you with a complaint that the compression gauge is stuck in one of the spark plug holes. He can't get it to screw out of there. Won't screw back out. He doesn't know what to do about it. His hose won't connect from his adapter, so he can't use the socket. Which option makes the best sense? Cut the hose and use the deep socket. Screw in the other spark plug, start the engine. Remove the cylinder head and drill the adapter out. You can't get it out of there, you know? What you gonna do? This is critical thinking, guys. You gotta be able to solve problems. Nick knows about having to solve problems. We had to pull that cover off his cousin's car the other day. That car with a bullet hole in the fender, you know? And we had to take it on and screw that thing out of there. I mean, he had these rounded out, these little fasteners that held that cover on were rounded completely out. It was a dadgum round hole.
When I say circle,
I mean, it was a round circle. And some of them were down in a hole. So what did we do? We took a T40 Torx bit, which grips what?
Are you still recording?
Huh?
Are you still recording?
Am I doing what?
Yeah.
Anyways, so is it okay to like cut up tools?
I wouldn't. But anyway, what we did, we drove a T40 Torx bit down in those little suckers and, you know, use a 1/4-inch socket, break loose, bring it down there. I mean, being able to solve a problem is a lot of what we got in here. Because how many guys you run into a rusty bolt?
man.
How many of you told me, don't use a dadgum 12-point socket unless it's a 12-point bolt? You know what I mean? 12-point socket's a joke if you ain't got a 12-point bolt to put on. New technician just removed the transmission and replaced a one-piece rear main engine oil seal. A one-piece oil seal is the, you know, when you put in there. You saw the seal after you installed it and it looked just fine. Now the oil leak from the flywheel housing is twice as bad as it was before. How do you think it was? He gouged the sealing surface of the crankshaft when removing the seal. The garter spring popped out of the seal while he was installing it. The rear main engine oil seal wasn't the problem to begin with, or all of the above. Alright. Quiz question number 4. You're working on a 99 Jeep Cherokee for a power door lock problem. The doors will unlock just fine, but they won't lock with either door switch. They also lock and unlock with the remote fob. They'll do it both ways with the fob, but they won't work with either one of the switches. What's the most likely cause of the problem? You think you have 2 bad door lock switches? A bad driver's door module? A bad passenger door module? A bad door lock actuator? This is sort of the think outside the box kind of a test. You're not gonna feel all beat up when this is done, are you? All right, well, this is a schematic right here, by the way.
I can't see none of that.
There's your passenger door module, which includes the switch. And there's your driver door module, which includes the switch. And this is the part you're actually looking at on here. Here's your door lock mount. Remember, your remote keyless entry will actually operate this. Hello,
Hey.
what's your name?
Huh?
What's your name?
Angel?
Okay, Angel, what you need?
I was wondering if you could fix a tire for me.
Is that her?
Y'all doing classwork today?
Yeah, well, no, we're actually gonna be in here until lunch, and then we're gonna go to lunch, and then we'll come back at 1, so. We'll be able to do this afternoon. You gonna be here all day?
She will. She'll be here till 4. My little one, you know, my little one.
Yeah?
So,
Yeah,
she'll be
tell
here
her to
till
come
4.
see me at 1, and we'll see what we can do for her. Where's the car at?
She's actually pulling it over here now.
Okay, just,
And,
if she can leave it there, then we'll see what we can do with it at 1.
Okay.
All right?
All right, I will
And
do
tell
it.
her to leave
Just
the
leave the
key,
key in
or
there.
bring me the key.
All right.
All right. Okay, right here, just look at that and think about it for a minute, I'm gonna move on. You receive a Keon engine running code 41, lean exhaust on an 87 Ranger. Installed in the breakout box, you check the O2 voltage from the sensor and find 2.38 volts. That's usually supposed to be between 0 and 1, isn't it, on those old ones, on that 87. Checking continuity from the PCM to the sensor, you got good continuity, no shorts to power. The signal wire connector pins are all tight. What's the most likely cause of the problem? A, a blown heater fuse. B, a contaminated sensor. C, a loose O2 sensor ground. Or D, a shorted EVP sensor. What if this was your final exam? Would this be really good? What? Y'all are gonna need to take the ASE student certification test, by the way. So I'm gonna have to set those up. You may see questions like this on there. If at first you don't succeed, you fail. 1984 Mazda RX-7 has been in your shop 6 times for bad rear axle bearings in the last 6 months. 6 times in the last 6 months, like once a month. On the last visit, you replaced the entire rear axle assembly with a new unit. Now both bearings have failed again. What's the most likely cause of the recurring failure? It's a true story. A bent vehicle frame, a warped drive shaft, a disconnected battery to engine ground. The customer is driving the car too hard. You need a laugh line? A 1994 Bronco with a 5-liter engine is throwing rich running DTCs and is blowing black smoke. The engine vacuums 13 inches at idle. The engine runs slightly better at higher RPM. You suspect retarded ignition timing, but it checks okay. What is the least likely cause? This is like an ASE question. A loose harmonic balancer and a sheared crankshaft key, a stretched timing chain, heavy EGR flow at idle, or a blown upper intake gasket. A 96 Ford Windstar comes into your shop with a PO304 and a misfire that only occurs when the engine is off idle. And that means that you've got it just into it a little bit. You hold the throttle to keep the misfire steady while checking with your stethoscope. You find that the number 4 injector stops clicking. Switching the vehicle off and restarting, you find the injector starts working again. The injector feed and signal wires check out fine all the way to the PCM. What's the most likely cause? A bad PCM driver that stops firing the injector when it heats up. Clogged EGR ports except one feed number 4. Hey, young lady, you got a key? Let's do what we can do.
Which tire is it? It's the front driver's side.
Driver's side front. How long does it take you to lose this air?
On the next, yeah, let's go with.
Okay, we'll see what we can find from that. Sorry. Got a slow leak on the driver's side front tire. Takes it about a week before it gets low enough towards you gotta put air in it, but a tire can be half flat before you know it needs air. So we'll need to try to figure that out. Yeah, you can probably fix that, couldn't you? Yeah, all right then. Switching the vehicle off and restarting. Well, basically, a bad injector that drops out when it reaches a certain temperature, or trashing the fuel rail that moves away from the injector when the engine dies. Y'all have had time to figure that out while I was going, didn't you?
Nah, I wasn't even looking at it.
A 96 Mazda 626 with a 2-liter engine comes in on the hook from a used car lot. It spins like it has no compression at all. Technician A says the timing belt's probably at fault. Technician B says the IEC may have stuck and caused the cylinders to wash down with gasoline. What would you check first? The car should be pushed into the shop and the timing belt should be checked. A shot of engine oil should be added to each cylinder first to check for the washdown. The ignition system should be checked, and the IEC should be removed and checked. '94 Olds Cutlass with a 3100 engine has no injector pulse. The scan tool indicates the PCM is receiving an RPM signal. Technician A, following a no-start pinpoint test, finds a good signal from the crank sensor and condemns the ignition module. Technician B says the problem is probably not the ignition module. You guys want to do some serious troubleshooting work? All right. Let's back up through these. We're gonna blow through real quick. The one thing that I like about these right here, these kind of tests right here, even if they got you totally up against the wall and you don't know how to answer, you're gonna learn something every time you find out what the right answer is, right? All right. Advanced valve timing is the right answer for that one. Now, why is that? Why is that gonna make blue smoke, and why is it gonna make compression higher? Think about this. If the intake valves are closing early, while the piston's still going down, it's gonna pull oil up past the rings. You got me? And it's also, because it's pulling oil up past the rings, it's gonna raise the compression because the oil is, helping it seal. You see what I'm saying? That ain't as complicated as it sounds, is it? You just gotta think your way through this thing, man. You know what I mean? The Honda came driving in hot. What you gonna do with this one? You're gonna screw the other spark plugs in and start the engine, let it get warm again. Heat the cylinder head up, it'll screw right out of there. Because it was hot when they screwed it in there. See where I'm going? That ain't complicated, is it? I mean, this is a common sense thing, man. Crank it up, let it get hot, screw the thing out of there. It works every time. All right, remove the transmission, replace the rear main seal. We had this happen here once. They busted their fanny, put it all back in, and when we pull it back out, that garter spring, that little spring around the inside of the seal, it holds it tight. Now, not all seals have them nowadays, but if that seal comes out, if that garter spring comes out of place, and you put it in, it'll just pour oil. It'll be worse than it ever was. Even though you put a new seal in there, if that garter spring's not there, then you seal will flip. All right, 99 Cherokee for power door lock. I had this on my 2001. And the problem was, you see right here, this passenger door module is responsible for operating the door lock. Got it? See that, and you got a lift gate power lock motor, and you got a passenger power door lock motor on there. So, anyway, all of those would work with the keyless entry module. So I know this is okay as far as what it can do. And the switch is built into this. This is the part you're actually looking at over there. But notice how the passenger door module is where the controller is that does all this work? And the driver door module is telling this that it's putting a request in to lock the doors. This one can't lock the door, this can't lock the doors. Basically, I had to put this on there. That's what the problem was, passenger door module. That's an automotive electronics thing. All right, key on engine.
What number?
Well, I actually looked at the schematic on that one. Bad passenger door module. I looked at that schematic when mine did that and figured out that that's what was the only thing it could be, right? Okay, this one right here, a loose oxygen sensor ground will cause it to be high voltage on the oxygen sensor and make low black smoke. Because if it doesn't have a reference ground to tell what the oxygen sensor is doing, you're gonna see 2 or 3 volts there. And if you see really high voltage there, find out where that oxygen sensor ground is. Now, on those older Ford 60-pin processors, 20, 40, 60, 16, and 49 were supposed to be grounded. All right, 16 was ignition ground, 49 was your oxygen sensor ground. On the ones that, fed the oxygen sensor ground out to it comes out there. But the oxygen sensor ground on the back of the head usually. And remember what I was telling y'all the other day, always put the ground back where it was. If you put the ground in a place that's easier to get to, you may make problems for yourself. So put the ground back where it was. And on those Broncos, it would be on the back of the head, back there about where the dipstick tube comes up. And I don't know how many times I've seen people that had worked on those and they left that ground swinging and it'd be puffing back smoke, running rich and sweaty dog and all that. This RX-7 problem, a disconnected battery to engine ground. Now, how is that possible? How's that going to destroy the bearings? What happened is they go to start it, since it can't get a ground through the ground cable, the ground, goes screaming down the drive shaft. It goes into the back axle, it runs out here, it arcs on the bearings, it comes back up the park cables into the body, and the car starts up. Now this one right here, there was a Mazda dealership gave up on it. And they gave it back to the school over there for, the Mazda school in Jacksonville for a trainer vehicle. And the instructor found that the ground was dense and loose, let's say it could get a ground, it just had to get it wherever it could get it. And it's because of the way that car was configured, it was, and like I say, it ran down the drive shaft, out through the axle, marked on the bearings, like a little welding machine. When you pull the bearings out, you can't tell what wiped them out, because they've already rolled and destroyed all that evidence. That's a true story, it really happened. A 90 Ford Bronco with a 5-liter engine making these rich codes. All right, the least likely cause is a blown up intake gasket. A blown up intake gasket on one of these, make it run fast, but it won't make it have low vacuum typically. You see what I'm saying? So if that's a gasket that's blown, kind of like what y'all were trying to replace on that one over there, or like Nick's putting on there right now, that plenum gasket. That upper intake gasket will blow sometime, but it causes a fast idle. And if I got a fast idle on one like that, I will actually put my hand over the over the place where the air goes in, and if it keeps running, I know it's getting air from somewhere else. If it tries to suck my hand in there and it dies, I know that it's got a good tight intake system as far as I have a blown gasket. Okay, this one right here is clogged EGR ports except the one feeding number 4. So when you crack the throttle, you come off idle, EGR starts flowing. The only place it can go to put EGR in there is through the one that's not clogged. And we've talked about this before, I just kind of brought it in. This one right here, use Carlite. What you're going to have on this is you're going to have a washed down, because use Carlites, move it from place to place to place without letting it warm up. And on those low tension piston rings, if you wash the cylinder walls down, it sounds just for all the world like, there's no compression. And I'd see them come in over there like that, and I'd check the timing belt right quick. It's easy to do on some of them. Look down there, okay, and then I'd put oil in each cylinder and it start getting compression, bust off and run. That's all it would need. And then finally, a 94 Olds Cutlass, no injector pulse. If the crank signal is making it, I actually saw this one time. You can look at the scan tool, you can see an RPM signal. But the injectors weren't powered up.